I'm a mental patient. A lot of us are mental patients. It's just a lot different now than it used to be. I'm not in an institution or in a straitjacket. I'm not institutionalized, but I am a mental patient technically because I'm medicated by a psychiatric professional, right? So if you start thinking about it in those terms, so I wanted to find like intake interviews from people who were considered like, crazy or whatever you want to say, because at a time, when psychiatric help wasn't as readily available as it is today, And anyway, found this documentary called The Faces of Depression and was really taken with this interview from it and the way this gentleman describes depression and the hopelessness that's associated with it. And I just really fell in love with that, and we put it at the beginning of the song, which ended up being the beginning of the album and the title of the album. So it was a really important moment, and this being my first time working with Rick on a record directly, we had some samples on the record, and you have to wait for samples to clear, right? And I'd never experienced that before because, I'd never really worked with anyone who had been in the hip-hop field or even adjacently, really, but that's the one sample we couldn't get cleared, and I was really kind of distraught about it, and we tried some other solutions, and eventually I just said, well, what's the holdup? And long story short, the son of the physician who conducted all that research was in charge. He's in charge of the estate, and he said that it was for educational purposes and not for entertainment, and he didn't want it used like for entertainment purposes. So I wrote him a letter explaining the advocacy for mental health awareness that this record aimed to kind of achieve, and he granted us the access to use it, which I'm really, really grateful for, because it is really impactful when you hear it, and it could not be recreated. It's really heavy. I know artists who aren't with us anymore because they kind of achieved what they were striving towards, and you get there and you realize you're still empty, and that's a terrible feeling. It's something that I've experienced, and other people I know who are still with us have experienced it, and people that I turn to and confide in and speak to. And that's really what my efforts are now, is just to the people who I've spoke to or confided in about my mental health and my journey, and I'm just trying to do that openly and publicly, have a dialogue with my fans and with other musicians to try to advocate. But anyway, what I'm getting at it's a lonely feeling when you realize you've achieved what you were trying to accomplish in order to feel something, and then you still feel empty. Where do you go from there? There's always an option, and there's always the ability to figure it out. It's not actual hopelessness. It is if you don't want to share it with anyone.
Emptiness, hopelessness, and loneliness.
Yeah.
Those three together, I feel like, tend to play off of each other a lot. And I don't think, for people who don't feel emptiness, or they don't know that they feel emptiness, could you describe what that feels like what's kind of unique about emptiness?
And that's the other thing too, is I feel like there's this innate assumption, and I do it in all sorts of things, like there's this assumption that everyone is kind of on the same wavelength, and I'm trying to be more available to over-explaining, over-communicating. After the demise of my previous relationship, I am an over-communicator, and I like to handle things right in the open. And I find out things like through podcasts or through whatever, some people don't have an inner dialogue even, and that's such a foreign concept to me. But some people may not understand what emptiness feels like, so when they hear you talking about it, they just sound like, or they may even get the idea that you're just ungrateful, or that you're a crybaby or something. And I think that's kind of the fear, and maybe part of the reason people don't open up about their emotions more readily. But emptiness to me just feels like, and I remember when I was young too, one of my first girlfriends. I wrote a song. It was called Love is Emptiness, and I never did anything with it, but, you know, she was really hurt by it because she's like, well, I thought things were going pretty well, and I just didn't have the wherewithal to be able to explain with her that, you know, things are going well. That's why I feel comfortable to write something like this and be vulnerable with you and share it with you. And I was really confused by that. And, you know, emptiness is really difficult to explain, but it's important that we try to unpack it so people have a clearer understanding that it's not ungratefulness, but I'm kind of dodging the question because I don't really understand how to define it, but, you know, I know it when I see it. And I think that's why I was only really, there's a couple songs on the record that I wasn't able to write until it was more in a retrospective exercise. Some songs I wasn't able to write in the moment because I didn't have the awareness or the understanding of why that's not all right. And I felt like that for a long time. I don't deserve to live without pain because, you know, in any religion that you practice, rather, is like there's the concept of, you know, paying for something you did before, and whether it's in this life or a past life, you're going to pay for what you did. And so there's that understanding, and there's so many rationales that you come to. I feel, at least for me, there's all these rational explanations that you come to in your mind before the idea of actually saying, well, no, I do deserve to be happy. And that's the last thing you come to for whatever reason. At least it was for me.
If you feel okay with it, do you mind just kind of walking through how you got from one to the other? Because that's a powerful journey, to go from I deserve to I do deserve. And was there anything in particular along the way that really clicked for you?
It's just part of my daily ritual, you know, because it's just like trying to lose weight or keeping weight off. It's a daily grind. It's a daily ritual. And just like I have some days where I don't make it to the gym, or I don't intermittent fast as long as I'd like to, or I eat something that I know is going to make my joints feel inflamed, or make me not feel that great because it had a lot of dairy in it and I don't eat a lot of dairy, or whatever it is. I know that my stomach's going to hurt or something, you know, I'm going to have heartburn. Some days I'm just depressed and I just wallow in it, like a lot of us have those days where we're just like, yeah, my screen time on my phone's going to be insane. I'm going to lay in bed, I'm going to watch some junk TV, and I'm not going to grow at all. And you just kind of wallow in it. And I think it's okay to have those days where you kind of revel in it. And the journey for me is all about just like daily gratitude, you know, confirming these things that I do have in my life that bring me joy, whether I realize it or not, and just trying to manifest the joy that people provide to me, because it's all out there, and I'm really thankful for it. So that's kind of my journey.